Shalom Yasharala, this your brother Dawada, coming back at you with this here truth again. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honor to the apostles and elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, Akim, pushing this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. So I want to jump into this here lesson, as we're getting, closer to the end of the year, which this is basically like war season. This is when you start hearing them beating the war drums and things like that as we get to the end of the year, all the way up to about, around February time or whatnot. This is when you start seeing a lot of these increases in these stories as World War III is starting to boil up. But nevertheless, I want to touch in on this here portion of it, all right, as far as not necessarily World War III, but how you're starting to see a nation, not really a nation, the brothers being divided, the hatred towards their own brothers, all right, which is going to end all be all, turn all of America's allies on America. Now, we're specifically only dealing in this here article with, basically NATO, but nevertheless, going into that, a lot of, really the whole EU, all right, is in NATO, but then you have other nations that are in NATO that's not in the EU. For example, Turkey, America, Canada, they're not a part of the EU, which stands for the European Union. All right. But nevertheless, and really going into those things a little deeper, which while we always say this is all part of the same beast system, is because really the EU isn't really a military branch, for more or less to say, this is more or less their governing body over there. Right. Conglomeration of these nations, whereas they have basically NATO is their armed forces, just like how they have, the UN, right? That's more or less a government body. But then they also have what they call, I believe, the blue helmets or whatnot, which is like their military arm. All right. But nevertheless, this is going more into, seeing this here division amongst these allies. All right. Which is going to culminate in what? The beast starting to hate the whore. All right. And burning her flesh with fire. So just real quick, looking at a couple of these here articles. All right. Start with this one here. It says Europe is united. French minister agrees EU leaders to adopt measures against Turkey at next summit. All right. Now, again, like I just said, the EU members, the United Nations, not United Nations, the European Union. All right. Those countries are pretty much in NATO, but NATO countries, like Turkey isn't a part of the EU. But nevertheless, you're starting to see the divide here, right? Because they're both NATO members, right? So you have Europe, part of, the conglomeration of nations, all right, versus Turkey, all right? And they also have a proxy war that's going on out there as well, too, all right? And like I believe in Azerbaijan, there's another article on that as well, too. But nevertheless, this next one here says, let's skip that one. It says Biden fantasizes about Russia tearing up U.S. alliance as NATO members clash and bicker amid Trump bullying. Now I'm gonna just briefly touch on like one paragraph in this one here. Where was it? Slacky, give me 1 second. All right, it says here it says, ironically, just as Russia is accused of yet again sowing division, because the whole purpose of NATO is basically to counter the Soviet Union, the USSR, basically, which that's been gone for shit. I forgot, like at the end of the Cold War, more or less to say, but nevertheless, NATO needs a boogeyman to keep that so-called, not threat, but that so-called measure of security to have in the background. This is what keeps America's big expanded military across the globe, because as you read in Revelation 17, America is the whore that's riding and controlling the beast. The beast would be NATO and the EU, right? So going into this further, it says, ironically, just as Russia is accused yet again of sowing division, Moscow has in recent days called for the calming tensions between NATO members, Turkey and Greece. All right, so this is infighting in between the two. Right, but they always say that Russia's the boogeyman and Russia's the problem. We need NATO for this, but hey, Russia's trying to basically mediate the deal, right? So it says Russia in recent days called for calming the tensions between NATO members Turkey and Greece in their dispute over Mediterranean energy resources. Russia offers to mediate in the crisis, so much for tearing up the alliance. Just wanted to read that part there because of the fact that they always try to blame that on them, right? So now we're going to actually read this here article real fast. I think it's this one. All right. It says, after 4 years of chaos, many Euro leaders want rid of Trump, which is also another sign because, well, they'll talk about it here in the article a little bit, but how Trump slams all these other people. They had this one, I think it was a magazine cover or whatever, when they have a photo where it's like all the EU members or all the basically EU and NATO members are looking, all the NATO members are looking one way, but Trump is looking the opposite way. You know, Trump is talking about how they were obsolete. He wants to get rid of them and things, right? It says, after 4 years of chaos, many Euro leaders want rid of Trump, but President Biden could make life very difficult for some. In reality, you know, more than just Trump talking shit about them, it's like really no benefit for the NATO and EU members to keep supporting America in their agenda because they don't get any benefit out of it. They're not getting anything. It's just like me asking my whole squad of homies, yo, bro, we finna go hit this lick. We gonna go rob the bank. And they come with me to go rob the bank. You know, I got a gunman run up in there with me, a driver or whatever, or a lookout or whatever, whatnot. We score big. We make it out of there. You know, I got $20-30 million or whatever, whatnot. Now everybody like, oh shit, we made off good. Like, nah, I made off good. Y'all, like, wait a minute, we took risk with you. We ain't gonna get broke off. Like, what the hell is the point of us going on a mission for, you know? This is what these other nations are starting to realize now, you know? It says, having dumped treaties, insulted leaders, and formed unlikely alliances, Donald Trump has upset many in Europe as U.S. president. But Joe Biden election win could present its own issues, in particular for Britain's Boris Johnson. If Joe Biden does overcome Donald Trump in the U.S. election, then from Wednesday next week until the moment he is handed the keys to the Oval Office in January 2021, he better hit the phone hard because there are a few bruised egos out there that need to feel love. Let me try to... Right. Let me just read this down here, getting to the point. It says, because Trump's approach to dealing with Europe has been something to behold, all right, because he's talking all this trash to his own people, all right. He called the historical NATO alliance obsolete, which in reality it is, because their whole purpose of forming them was to combat the USSR, right? And the USSR is no longer there, right? But they're now forcing them to come back together again because they got all their troops aligned alongside NATO, Russia's border. You know, they got them pretty much surrounded, all right? It says he called the historical NATO alliance obsolete. Ex-British Prime Minister Theresa May a fool. German Chancellor Angela Merkel stupid. Dubbed French President Emmanuel Macron very, very nasty. Denounced Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez digital tax initiative as a direct attack on technological multinationalism in the U.S. and has kept the EU at a frosty arm's length, maintaining that the bloc is a direct competitor to American trade interests. All right, so he's shooting his own foot, man. You know, he's calling they're causing their own demise. You know, it says elsewhere he has coised up on social media to Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. Loves his country greatly and works well with the U.S. We're not gonna read that one. Let me see. There's another couple paragraphs I wanted to read in here. These two? Slaka, give me a second. There's quite a bit in this article, but it says, it was this one here. It says, with Brexit all but done, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson may find the hotline from the White House disturbingly quiet. Biden is not a fan of Bojo, viewing him as a British Trump, a reckless populist prepared to trash international treaties like EU withdrawal agreement and put Biden revered Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland in peril. All right. It says, in terms of any new U.S.-UK relation, Biden will be asking what's in it for him. While the UK was a member of the EU, it was by far preferred and extremely useful getaway for the U.S. when dealing with Brussels and the wider European community. Once we were all on the same page, spoke the same language, and supported each other's ambition and suspicion. Not anymore. All right. So going into these here situations, right? he's starting to see it boil over these situations. All right, they're not really seeing eye to eye. You know, I spoke about this in a previous lesson or whatever, whatnot, about a lot of these differences that these nations have, whether it be what is it? Germany and France want to produce their own fighter aircraft, and America won't allow them to do that. All right, they have the S-400 that Turkey wound up receiving over there, and that Turkey received from Russia. All right, which compromises the F-35 and the F-35 program, and they pretty much put sanctions on them, took the sanctions back off of them, and you know they had some harsh words, you know, and even down here it says when dealing with your boy Erdogan, it says right here it says talking about Erdogan, it says I get along very well with Erdogan, even though you're not supposed to, because everyone says what a horrible guy. But, you know, for me, it works out good. So, hey, but it was up under you that was, you know, you was threatening them or whatever, whatnot, and so on and so forth. They still got the S-400 over there and so on and so forth, you know. And then there's another situation in the news as well today, you know, dealing with Venezuela getting arms from Iran. But, you know, that's, you know, on a different topic. But nevertheless, as you starting to see these nations, all right, these nations are saying, hey, whether Trump or Biden is in office, we're pretty much done with America, man. It's not really the person that's in control over there, but it's more or less, you know, your so-called international agenda as a whole, man. All right. So now let me jump into some scriptures real quick, show you how these things are starting to play out. All right. First and foremost, we want to start here in Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7. And Yahweh thy power will put all these curses upon thy enemies and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Right. So as we know that we're in this here time period now where the Lord, you know, Ezekiel 37. Right, the valley of the dry bones, you know, children of Israel starting to wake up, you know, but nevertheless, as the curses, the Most High is lifting the curses up off of the Israelites, he's putting them onto the Edomites right now, right? So now let's look at one of these curses that the Most High said he was going to put on our enemies. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and towards his wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Now, quickly, just, let me just go into the brother, right? Now, you see, let's just talk about the so-called black man, right? You see the hatred that the so-called black people have sometimes towards other so-called black people. They could be out on the basketball court, shooting hoops, somebody step on somebody's shoe, or in the clubs, you know, they want to put out guns and killing each other over some little petty shit, right? But nevertheless, you also see between the different tribes, all right, how there's some hatred, you know, between, like, let's say the so-called Mexicans and the so-called Puerto Ricans, man. All right, go over there and call one of them the wrong name. You know, let's say it's a so-called Puerto Rican over there, and you call them, hey, you Mexican or something like that, and, you know, they get all offended, you know. But nevertheless, these are the curses that was on the children of Israel that the Most High starting to lift and put onto the Edomites, right? Now, the Edomites is pretty much like the Israelites in the sense whereas the Israelites is a nation of nations, right? You have the 12 different tribes. You know, you have the Judahites, the Issacharites, the Reubenites, the Gadites, you know, the Asherites, so on and so forth. These are different tribes that are among them. Now, Esau is in the same sense. I believe Esau had 5 different sons. They have different tribes as well, too. All right. But as you're starting to see, all right, these different nations are, you know, as far as NATO and the EU, all right, because basically all of them are all Edomites, man. All right. You know, you have people that be like, oh, Turkey or whatever, whatnot. But a lot of those are Edomites over there as well, too. A lot of those people over there are Edomites. You know, you're not who you are based off of your location, you know, or your religion. Like most people would think that the Iranians, because they Muslim, right? You know, Muslim is a religion, right? They would think that they're the same as, you know, the people in Saudi Arabia or the people in Iraq or whatever, whatnot. You know, well, no, those people over there would basically be Ishmaelites, right? But the Iranians, these are Persians, all right? These are completely different people, all right? But nevertheless, it says, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil towards his brother, all right? Hey, so you're starting to see these different tribes amongst the Edomites, all right, starting to go at each other's throat like that, man, all right? You beforehand, you know, you see all these Edomite nations doing all kind of crimes or whatever, whatnot, and, you know, let me just flip it a little bit. Whenever these things happen like this to, let's say, Israel, or something like that, you know, all these Edomites pretty much band together and be like, see, they the bad guy, look what they doing, and they crying and sobbing or whatever, whatnot. But then when, you know, Israel does something to one of these other countries, or any of these Edomite countries do something that's out of whack, like after 9/11, how America went over there and all those war crimes and whatever, whatnot. Hey, those Edomite nations, well, we don't see no wrong. We didn't see that. We didn't see this. We didn't see that. So they was all on one accord. But right now, they're starting to call each other out. You know what I'm saying? You had the Brexit happen where Britain pretty much left the EU. All right, and when you go back to the EU, I forgot what year that was. It was like in the 2000s, I believe, where they basically came together and pretty much dropped their borders. They basically became like one big ass country where they got like one currency where they can use it all. They don't have to, have passports to travel between the different borders of these different countries. So it's basically like one big ass country now, right? But nevertheless, they starting to see the downsides of that. Like, yo, man, you still have their respected leaders in each of these countries, but they don't really have a one agenda for their own people. They got to go along with what the group says, just like in NATO, right? Well, you have all these NATO nations. They all got their own personal military. Like, if America was, they have it to where they back each other and things like that. But theoretically, America could wage war against another nation and it just be America and their military over there, right? But again, they have situations where it's like, well, if you attack one NATO member, then all of NATO comes out. All right. But nevertheless, all these different nations over there have their own militaries, right? They have basically their own situations going on, right? But nevertheless, they don't get no benefits out of it. And so they're starting to go bankrupt and everything like that. So this is why Britain pretty much pulled out of these situations, right? But you're starting to see that this here block is starting to crumble, all right? It says, continuing on, let me read that again, verse 54. So that the man that is tender among you and very delicate his eye shall be evil towards his brother, and towards the wife of his bosom, and towards the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Hey, and going into these times right now, because see, Esau's getting caught in his own snare, in his own trap, man. Talking all this junk. Let's just say Donald Trump is going to ride it all the way out. Let's just say he'd be the president for the next, hypothetically, next 20 years or something like that, right? At the same pace that he's going at now. All of America allies will wind up leaving them, which will leave the door open for these other nations to attack them. So what is this really doing? You know what I'm saying? It's like a man is the head of his household, his wife and his kids and so on and so forth, But then his man is going out and he got like a gambling problem, a drug problem, and now he out here robbing the drug dealer and not paying back his gambling debts or whatever, whatnot. Now, them people come to his house and they go in and top the whole family and everything. Bro, you pretty much then brought hell onto your own people, man. Won't you they cover the evil covetousness to his own house, man? All right, so look, man, you about to mess it up. It's all in scripture and it's all written, but hey, you watching the downfall of your own country, man. You got these Edomites out here talking about, oh, we got to make America great again. Well, who the one fucked up America for y'all? All right, it was your leaders, your Edomite leaders who did these things, man. All right, so let's go from there to, where is it? Daniel. This is Daniel 2 and I'm going to start at verse 40. All right. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, as iron that breaketh all these shall break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes and part of potter's clay and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, and there shall be in it the strength of the iron, for as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. And as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right. Now, going into this is Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which would show forth, the future world dominating kingdoms, right? Now we're getting into the fourth portion of it. You had the Babylonians, the Medo-Persians, then you go into like the Greco-Roman Empire, right? Then you go from there, you have it actually split into two, right? The Byzantine and the Ottoman Empire. But then that was that beast that had that wound, that deadly wound to his head, but it did live, and they brought it back, more or less to say, right? So when you go from that, that's talking about, again, the Roman Empire, the Greco-Roman Empire formed into the Roman Empire. These are all the same people. They just happen to be moving and stuff like that, right? These are all Edomites, right? Now, get into the legs and so on and so forth. But now, as you see, I just mentioned that beast that had that deadly wound to his head but did live, that was the Roman Empire, right? But then that deadly wound, when you go back in history, people think right now the Roman Empire is gone, man. You look up Rome nowadays, this is a little small ass place, I believe over in Italy. It's a little small ass place now, whereas beforehand it had covered a large territory, man. All right, but nevertheless, that Roman Empire is pretty much died off, right? Or so you would think that it died off, right? But in 1492 they started coming back about the holes again, right? Which would fast forward until today, all right, as we getting down to these here toes and stuff like that. We're in the modern day Roman Empire all over again, right? These same Edomite nations and everything, right? So then they go down to the toes and everything like that. In the book of Revelation, it breaks it down a little bit further than that. The beast with the crowns on his head and everything like that, so on and so forth. Lord, we'll be able to get that in Revelation 17. But nevertheless, touching in on the toes and everything, right? How it says, verse 41, whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part of potter's clay, part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Let me see. Yep. The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of iron, for as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. All right. And so now when you go into these things, these is pretty much like oil and water. You got a little glass or something, or a jar, you put some oil and some water in there. No matter how much you shake it up, it'll mix a little bit, but then it's going to just separate again. It's not going to cleave unto one another, man. All right. So this is what it's going into, no matter how many treaties and things that they talk about and they come together on certain things, no matter how much you shake it up and everything like that, and it seems to mix together for a while, once that water settles, they're going to wind up separating again, right? Verse 42, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. All right. Verse 43, and whereas thou sawest iron, now you see partly strong and partly broken. Now you look at the EU, man. All right. A lot of those countries over there are kind of going broke, like Germany. This is what one of their problems is over there, because they can't afford to keep putting in more and more money, or the 2% of their GDP into the NATO, basically the NATO budget, again, France and Germany, they want to build their own planes. They don't want to be cleaving into America with these things. Turkey, they don't want to be sitting over here, which, they're part of NATO as well, too. They don't want to be buying, they was dealing and building the F-35, but they want to buy the S-400. All right. You have Britain, who was like, we was cool with the EU, but now we want out of the EU. You see what I'm saying? So now they're, partly strong, partly broken. And then you also have, like I said, the situation between, this is like a proxy war going on between Greece and Turkey, basically. You know what I'm saying? So nevertheless, hey, man, you starting to see, just like how I made the analogy, you could put oil and water in a jar and shake that bad boy up, real hard or whatever, whatnot, to the point where you see that they seem to be mixed together. But once you let the water sit and settle, they're going to separate again, right? Verse 43, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave to one another, as iron is not mixed with clay. Like I was just saying, the oil and the water, man. Y'all can mix it all up together, whatever, whatnot. Y'all gonna be together for a little while or whatever, whatnot. But once things start to settle, then what? Then what do we do? So you had to put the oil and the water in a jar and start mixing it up. When they proposed, oh, look, the USSR, now we got to come together to band together against the big bad boogeyman. Well, now that water and that oil start to settle, the USSR is no more. Now what do we do? Why are we still spending all this here money for what? To police who? To militarily dominate who? What are we getting out of these things? So as things start to settle, they're not mixing anymore, all right? Let me go from there to Matthew chapter 12 and verse 25 and 26. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. All right. Now, this is some hardcore ass witchcraft shit that Esau know about, i.e. look at the black communities when they gave us, all these different things, the welfare and everything like that. They divided up our house. Look at how they took down Jake, man. All right. These were the curses that was put upon us. Like we read when we opened up, that we would have an evil eye towards our brother. But, Jake put it out there to where we became enemies with each other. So he knew he couldn't take down the whole 12 tribes by himself physically. So what? The Lord had put the spirit on them, like, look, divide them up, do this and do that, make them hate each other, make them think that they're each other's enemies or whatever, whatnot. Because, again, these are the curses the Most High put upon us. All right. Go into your household right now. You got your husband, your wife, and your kids, and everything is all good and so on and so forth. But then, let there be an argument over finances or who the hell they voting over. All right. Now they start having different views over this and over that or whatever, whatnot, then that household eventually they're gonna want to get a divorce eventually. All right, they have to be on one accord. How can two stand unless they be on one accord? All right, so you see these things, where they pit both sides against one another and come and sweep up the rest, man. It's an old mob tactic, You gas one person up, one of your enemies you gas up against your other enemy, and you gas the other enemy up against that enemy, and then they go to war. They weaken each other down, and you come and sweep up the rest, right? So verse 25 in Matthew 12 says, and Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan cast out Satan, he is divided against himself. How shall then his kingdom stand? Now they was talking to him about, basically he was doing miracles, right? And they would say, oh, he's doing these miracles in the power of Satan. It was like, well, if he had a demon on him, and y'all saying I'm coming in the power of Satan, why the fuck would I cast a demon out of a nigga if I'm working for Satan, trying to do Satan's will? His will would have been to put the demon on him. Yeah, don't make sense. But here in the same sense, look at these Edomites, who is, the physical counterparts of these damn devils walking around out here, man. All right, they got their conglomeration, their nation, their military block and everything like that to dominate the whole world. All right, they're on one accord with each other, with being Edomites. All right, but now they're starting to clash with one another, man. All right, in times where they're talking about going to World War III and all these different things, all these other nations are looking out. Is this the man that made the world a wilderness, a desolation? All right, and open out the house of his prisoners, where everybody's calling out Esau and the Most High made him bare. They should be banding together now more than ever. But guess what they're doing? They starting to have fights amongst themselves, man. All right, so let me read this again, Matthew 12 and 25. And Yahushua knew their thoughts and said unto them, every kingdom divided against itself is brought into desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. All right, so hey, looking at this here, not just here in America. Hey, look at how the nation's divided here in America over all kind of different things. This is why you have all these riots and protests and can't nobody get along. But how much more on a larger scale between America and their allies, the EU and so on and so forth? They trying to kick America out. America trying to kick them out. They all divided up against each other. All right, now if this here war break out between Russia, China, and so on and so forth, against the opposing side, which is the Western side, the Western ideology, more or less to say. But nevertheless, they're not going to be on one accord with one another, man. All right, you got Turkey out there with the S-400, which is a part of a Russian-made weaponry and everything like that, which would render the F-35 obsolete. All right, so this would just be all bad business for America right now, man. All right. Obadiah chapter 1, verse 7. All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border, and the men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. And they that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is no understanding in him. All right, so going into these things, man. All right, you see in the men that were in confederacy, the men that were in league, in a pact with with these Americans over here, they all Edomites, but the ones that were in league with here in America, not just here in America, because you got like the EU breaking up, the European nations, they going at each other right now. Some of them are, not all of them, but nevertheless, you got infighting between Britain don't want to be part of the EU no more. You got the Brexit going on. All right, I believe it was another nation over there two other nations trying to do that. I want to say Spain and somebody else. But then you also have these NATO nations fighting one another, where it's like Turkey versus basically like Greece and them. They got a proxy war popping off. All right, you have all these different things going on right now to where is what? They starting to clash with one another. But how much more where you have Donald Trump calling NATO obsolete, all right, so on and so forth. And they saying, hey, well, it's no real difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, man. Neither one of these guys are good for our situation. So now they all what? They all kind of at odds with one another, man. All right. So look, it says, all the men of that confederacy have brought thee even to the border, brought you out for war. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. All right. Yeah, because they thought that, oh, we would always have your back of this and that. And then they, America may say, oh, we're going to go into this here nation. I want to make sure y'all got my back with that. Then you go into this here nation and they're like, nah, we ain't following you, as you already over there bombing folks. In fact, we're going to condemn you and we're going to bring down, United Nations charges on your ass. And we finna wage war against you. Now you out there looking stupid because you thought your homies was finna back you in this here fight, and you went up there selling out everybody or whatever, whatnot, ran up it through the first rock, and you turned around and all your homies is over there trying to gang up on you, man. All right, so this is what it's all leading into. All right, so let me go from there to what was that I said I was gonna read? The beast shall hate the whore. Right, this is gonna all lead them into this here right here, Revelation 17 and verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, all right, you know, like I was saying, because they give you the breakdown right here with the boom, verse 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. You know, we was going into the 10 toes. It's the same situation. You know, if your spirit can receive it, you know, this is the same thing that we was just reading in Daniel. You know, look at who's writing these books, right? Same information. Revelation 17 and 12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are the 10 kings. All right. And received no kingdom as of yet, you know, because this was going back into those times when they wrote this. They hadn't came into power until these modern day times. Have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. All right. So that's the time that we're living in now, where they all are in a conglomeration with one another. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. You know, as you've seen George Bush at the 9/11, his homies, his allies wasn't really with going and invading the Middle East like that. But guess what? He went out there. They had to follow, right? So it says, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called chosen and faithful. You know, because ultimately, you know, once they go into World War III and everything like that, you know, Most High are going to send Yahushua, and he's going to, you know, there was a war in heaven. The devil fought and his angels, you know, Michael and his angels fought, and the devil and his angels fought, you know. But nevertheless, let me jump down, still talking about, you know, these 10, which is, you know, going into basically NATO and the EU, all right? It says, Revelation 17 and 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, all right, these basically they're America's allies, right, in the NATO EU alliance. These shall hate the whore and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Like as we just read in Obadiah 1 and 7, the men that was in confederacy with thee have brought you even to the border, the ones that eat your bread, the ones you was fulfilling and sustaining and helping taking care of all their problems and everything like that, so on and so forth. Now you see, like with Europe and Germany and all them with the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, they trying to get that oil from Russia. America, they not with that shit because it's cutting America out. There's also another article in the news today about the BRICS nations and everything like that, giving out money for the COVID situation. You know what I'm saying? So this is going to be enticing to these other nations. Like, why would we want to keep fucking with America, who's overtaxing us? You know, it's like you're going to go get a damn loan. You know, you've been going to Amscot to get a loan, and for $100, you got to pay them back $600, right? Like, why would I want to go do that when I can go over to this new bank over here, borrow $100, and I can pay it back whenever I can pay it back and afford to pay it back, and I only got to pay back the $100 that I borrowed from them. You see what I'm saying? That would, you know, wake anybody up like, I'm going to go over there. So this is now what these other nations are starting to see. So they starting to slowly but surely back away from America, and then also break down those, you know, certain barriers, or not barriers, but certain links that hold some of these nations together, so that they're looking out for their own neck. But ultimately, it's going to end up with what? These nations starting to be at odds ends with America, America at odds ends with them. Brothers starting to hate each other. You know, they're not going to cleave to one another. The iron and the miry clay, they're not cleaving to one another. And like the scriptures say, every kingdom divided amongst itself, it can't stand. So if Satan cast out Satan, his kingdom is going to be divided. It can't stand. So what do you think is going to happen to Esau, you know, and his kingdom? Because he's in his kingdom of heaven right now, as the scriptures say in Job 9 and 24, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. All right. But guess what he's about to do, man? He's dividing himself up right now, man. All right. Making easy pickings for when the Lord come in and just, you know, I mean, it ain't going to be necessarily easy pickings. It's easy for the Lord to do anything. It's not like that. But, you know, in a carnal sense, like I said before, this is a tactic. You got two enemies, you let them weaken each other up, and then you go in and sweep up the rest of the mess, you know? So nevertheless, you know, how should I say, I came to send fire on the earth, but what would it be if it's already lit, man? All right, it's about to be all out chaos, not even on a local level like we see the riots and the uproars of the people here, but also amongst these different nations and their leaders, man. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close out with that. Lord willing, this here lesson was edifying unto the elect. Until next time, I say, call halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of great millstone that taught us this truth and that rule well. And salutation and much love for you, I can push this truth and sincerity on the four corners of the earth and enduring afflictions to feed and edify the elect. Till next time, I say, stay strong. Shalom.